All right. The fans of combat sports are headed to Miami this weekend for UFC 287. And this is like the second time we've been to Miami or something like that. And we got a really stocked card to boot. I'm loving this card. Pretty decent early prelims card, but of course a super stacked. Well, in my opinion, I think it's a pretty stacked main card. Very excited for this bout. Let's get into my predictions. Disclaimers as usual. This is just my opinion, and my only informed opinion. And yeah, let's get into it. I mean, if I want to air out some grievances, I am a little disappointed that let's see that Chris Barnett is not fighting this week. I love Chris Barnett, but he's not fighting, and hope he gets better. We got Gerald. I've never had to say his last name out loud before, so Gerald versus Joe Pfeiffer. Also excited for this middleweight bout. And Chris Curtis, Kevin Gastelum. Very, very curious to see Kevin Gastelum finally come back. But yeah, let's just get into this main card. The card opens up with Raul Rosas Jr. versus Christian Rodriguez. Um, wow, I mean, Rosas Jr. is such an inspiration, man. 18 years old, youngest UFC fighter of all time, right? And is the betting favorite, a pretty decent betting favorite, and only his second UFC fight. Was he in the prelims for UFC 282? I can't remember. But already main card status, star potential. As far as this matchup goes, I think it's gonna be a pretty interesting matchup. I mean, both these guys, I've only seen one fight from both these guys, right? And from what I've seen from both of them, they're both wins. They both won their last fight, both submissions, as well as performance of the night submission wins. So I think this is going to be a pretty interesting pairing. I'm curious to see how the grappling is going to go. If one's going to be more successful than the other. Despite being 18 years old, Rosas Jr. does not seem to have a strength disadvantage yet, which is very impressive despite being 18 years old. But I am considering that even though I don't believe I've seen much from Christian Rodriguez except his last fight during the Cater versus Allen fight night. I'm thinking that he does have a little bit more experience. But looking forward to a good fight. I think this is going to end up in a submission. I can't say I'm confident because I'm not too knowledgeable about both these fighters. But I'd be happy with either winning. These are both young guys, both up and coming, I think. But of course, Rosas Jr. being a huge inspiration. Just looking forward to another good fight. Just looking forward to a good fight between these two bantamweights, and yeah, looking forward to it. Next up, we have this main card is so cool, man. Kevin Holland versus Santiago Ponzinibbio. Very excited for this outing, and I'm gonna go with Kevin Holland in this matchup, probably by late TKO. I think that after his performance against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, that did put me in a pretty decent regard for Kevin Holland's striking. Now, in all fairness, Wonderboy did kind of style on Holland by the main event rounds as well as the later rounds, right? You know, before it was waved off by the corner. But in all fairness to Kevin Holland, he did take a lot of Wonderboy's best shots and what was pretty much a near exclusive striking fest, right? And he still delivered a lot of damage early on to Wonderboy, right? So I do think that based on that outing, that does give me better regard for Kevin Holland in this matchup. As far as Santiago Ponzinibbio, he does pose a threat. He does have that knockout power, and he does have a lot of heart. You know what I mean? He showed a lot of heart in that Michel Pereira fight. That even though he lost, he you know had a lot of heart, as well as his last fight, I believe in UFC 282, where he was losing that fight before that knockout. But he got that knockout, showing that he's still pretty dangerous. But, as far as my predictions, Kevin Holland is the younger fighter. He's got better cardio, probably the more efficient striker. I am going to go with Kevin Holland, probably by a late TKO. Yeah, that's how I see it going. We got a bantamweight banger up next. We got Rob Font versus Adrian Yanez. I'm going to bet on the favorite once more. I'm going to bet on Adrian Yanez by TKO at some point. Now, with that said, even though Rob Font hasn't had the most momentum lately, two losses in a row, got, 50-45 by Jose Aldo and, you know, Molly Walsh by Chito Vera, right? But that's not to put down the people he was fighting. You know what I mean? And Rob Font, I do see having some success in this matchup. I do see him being more successful in the exchanges and the output in the early rounds. And then I can see Adrian Yanez coming back and taking this by a TKO. I do see this being a potential fight of the night. Great, some really interesting striking going to go on. Like I said, Rob Font, I think, is going to have success early on with the output. And Adrian Yanez is going to come back. I think that this is going to be a back and forth fight. But if I am going to bet, I'm going to bet Adrian Yanez. So, but best of luck. I'm looking forward to this matchup. Next up, we got the co-main event. We got Gilbert Burns versus Jorge Masvidal, Miami's own. And I think once more, I'm gonna bet on the betting favorite. I see Gilbert Burns taking this by either submission or decision. I mean, yeah, I mean, to speak for the momentum between these two guys, obviously, um, Jorge Masvidal has not had the most momentum. 3 losses in a row, fought only once a year since 2020. You know, 50-45s from Usman and Colby Covington, as well as being knocked out cold for the first time in his career, right? Not the most momentum, but I will give Jorge Masvidal the credit. I do think that he has the best chance in this matchup compared to his previous 3 outings, right? I don't think that Gilbert Burns has the cardio of the likes of Colby Covington or Kamaru Usman. And even though he's an efficient grappler, I don't think he's as efficient. Yeah, as the I think he's a good grappler, a great grappler, obviously, but I don't think he poses much of a threat on the ground, even though he does have a ground threat. I don't know. Um, what I'm saying is, I think that Jorge Masvidal is going to have more opportunities to strike. He has not had as many opportunities to strike in his last 3 fights. In all fairness, which is, as we know, um, his best trait as a UFC fighter. I never thought he was the best striker in the UFC, but I do think he's a very slick and efficient striker. Fighting against Gilbert Burns, who is a little chinny. Now, not to put down the people that Gilbert Burns has been fighting, such as the likes of Khamzat Chimaev or Kamaru Usman, right? But I definitely don't see it out of Jorge Masvidal to get some good shots on the chin and put down Gilbert Burns and have some success in this fight, right? But if Gilbert Burns is going to take Jorge Masvidal's striking very seriously, he could just hold him down the entire 15 minutes, like he did with Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Like, Burns did not want to strike with Thompson, so he did what he was supposed to do, played into his strengths, and held him down the entire time, right? So I can't see that happening to Jorge Masvidal. Burns just holding down Masvidal for the duration of the fight. But like I said, I do see Masvidal having some success, and I probably, even though he's the biggest betting underdog on this card, Jorge Masvidal, um, like I said, I would give him a closer chance than these odds, right? By the way, still gonna go Gilbert Burns by decision if I was to bet money on it. But like I said, I can see Jorge Masvidal having success. But we are here for the main event. You want to hear about my predictions for the main event, the rematch, second fight in the UFC, fourth fight overall, Alex Pereira versus Israel Adesanya. You know, you have a very interesting, unique, and awesome, rare rivalry when one of the fighters is 0-3 coming into this fight and is still the slight betting favorite. Adesanya is still the betting favorite of Pereira, despite being on 3. So that's how you know you have such a unique and awesome rivalry, right? And competitive too. As far as my predictions go, I think this goes either way. I think this goes either way. I am not going to be surprised whoever wins this. Each fighter has their own pros and cons, to allow me to bet on them. I mean, if I'm picking Adesanya, I'll just say what I've been repeating for all these prediction videos is that the outcomes don't always tell the full story. The outcome of UFC 281 was Alex Pereira beat Adesanya, right? Fair and square, he beat him, right? But the full story is Adesanya was winning that fight before the finish. He was winning that fight before the finish, and he was more efficient with his striking, you know, getting more solid hits, right? And controlling the fight overall. He was cruising to a decision by the 5th round, right? And based on Adesanya's past performances, he's had flawless performances before, like against Paulo Costa, right? He's had performances that weren't necessarily spectacular, but, definitive wins, right? Such as the Jared Cannonier fight, right? I would not put it above Adesanya to pull through with a performance where he doesn't let a moment like the 5th round and at UFC 281 happen again. I can see Adesanya pulling that off. You know what I mean? It is not above him, right? But then on the other side, if I'm betting on Pereira, I could say, who cares? Who cares if Adesanya is the better kickboxer? Who cares if he's better in MMA? Who cares if he's better in kickboxing? Who cares if he's winning the fight, throughout the rounds, the duration of the fight, right? Pereira's 3-0 for a reason, right? He's also an efficient kickboxer, right? He has a similar height and reach to Adesanya, and he's a weight bully, right? He's a weight bully, so it doesn't matter what the gap is between Adesanya and Pereira. Pereira has an equalizer in the form of his stone hands, All right, his power advantage, whatever equalizer there, you know, makes up for the difference. And he'll just find that shot again. He'll just find that moment again where he can, finish Adesanya or get the best of him, right? So, I could lean either way, right? But at the end of the day, if I am going to lean right, I'm gonna go with Adesanya by decision because I am a believer in outcomes, not telling the full story. I am a believer in the full story, right? I can't, and once again, I can see Adesanya taking this by decision again, just you know not letting what happened in the fifth round happen again. But also, I'm not gonna be surprised if Pereira takes it, right? It's probably gonna be an Adesanya decision or Pereira finish. Um, you know, Adesanya says, he wants to, go all out, settle the score, right? Destroy Pereira, right? I don't know. I believe that Adesanya can win, but 0-3, I don't know if I can be convinced if you're going to destroy him, right? Does Adesanya need to completely revamp his game plan to take Pereira? Does he just need to do the same thing that he was doing against him in UFC 281 and just not letting a moment to stand in front of Pereira? Right? That part I'm not sure. So I'm gonna lean Adesanya, but I'm not gonna take too much credit because I wasn't too confident about either or, right? If I was gonna say I was gonna be slightly more confident about one outcome, it would be Adesanya winning. But like I said, I'm not gonna take too much credit no matter what happens because I'm not too confident. I'm just gonna look forward to a great fight. You know what I mean? We don't get rivalries like this often. Um, you know, I'm just gonna enjoy it while it lasts. You know, I could still see them running this back again if Adesanya wins to, settle the score in the UFC trilogy, right? But whoever wins, whoever loses, I'm just gonna enjoy it while it lasts and just enjoy this rivalry, right? And just kind of a great time. Enjoy the fights this weekend. This does it for my predictions. Who do you pick to win this card? Um, any agreements, any disagreements? How do you see this going? And yeah, let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe for other prediction videos. And yeah, I'll catch you guys next time. Enjoy the fights, everybody.